Hello, and welcome to Work Well with Stephanie Wolfe, brought to you by the Whole Food Health Coach LLC, where we make your goals our goals, and you're never alone on your wellness journey. Experience the information, inspiration, and collaboration of our Coach in Your Corner partnership. My name is Stephanie Wolfe. I'm a national board-certified health and wellness coach and proud owner of the Whole Food Health Coach, now in its 9th year, and 5-time winner of Best of Gwinnett Award in endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism practices. Rachel, Sherry, and I invite you to visit wholefoodhealthcoach.com to set up your 60-minute healthy living assessment. Our award-winning 3-phase program is changing lives. Work Well is brought to you weekly and is dedicated to your personal and professional health and wellness. I offer examples from my own life, health, marriage, family, and business. I share my research, my opinion, and my faith designed to bring you compelling content, engaging challenges, and practical body, soul, and spirit support on your wellness journey. Work Well comes to you from my personal desire to live long and strong with passion and purpose, die of old age, and help others to do the same. So from living rooms to boardrooms here on Business RadioX, you're listening to Work Well with Stephanie Wolfe. All right, let's do this. Dan, you get to decide whether this is funny or not, but I'm going to share a little story to get us to at least smile today. So it's called A Little Less Help this time. The mounted soldier was galloping down the road, rushing to catch up with his regiment, when all of a sudden his horse saw something and he stopped dead in its tracks, pitching her rider forward right to the ground. Lying in the dirt with a broken leg, terrified of the approaching enemy, the soldier called out, "All you saints in heaven, help me get back up on my horse." Then, with superhuman effort, he leaped from the ground, up onto the horse's back, and right over the other side. Once again on the ground, he called to the heavens, "All right, just half of you this time?" Okay, yeah, I know. Well, the thing is, we all need a little help every now and then. And so I'm grateful for the help that I have in my life and those that surround me. And I'm super excited for the things that we've been able to accomplish this year. So I just figured this out. This is my 50th show. And since starting this, so that's a lot. I'm pretty impressed. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I know there's applause happening out there in audience land. But if you've been listening to our podcast, then you know that every week I seek to offer you inspiration and information. So I love to see you challenge yourself, change something, improve something, let go of something, pick up something, start something, restart something. So in January, we did New Beginnings. In February, Heart Health. March was Marvelous Marriage Marathon Month. In April, Spring Cleaning. And in May, Women's Health Month. June was Men's Health Month. July was Aging Gracefully, thanks to my birthday of that month. And then August, Back to School and Personal Development. That was one of my favorite months, actually, until this month. And this month is September. So we are Fall Forward is our theme for the month. And it's all about self-care. And so happy fall, y'all. And fall forward. So our theme of self-care, we're just going to continue on with that because the beginning, last week we went for Go to Work Well. And I did talk about corporate wellness programs and things that I do along those lines. And today our topic, or our title, if you're keeping track, is Self-Care SuperPowers. And today I'm joined with my friend and referral partner, Jennifer Wilmoth, a therapist and owner of Thrive Forward Therapy. Welcome, Jennifer. Good to have you back.
Thanks so much for having me, Stephanie. I appreciate it. So I'm the owner of Thrive Forward Therapy. We are located in Suwanee, and we have a variety of different therapists that have different specialty areas, and we work all the way from age 3 to 103. So really everything in between, stress, anxiety, depression, working with the family just to have better relationships, couples to have better relationships. So we really kind of do it all in that. We also work with corporate leaders, and also professional athletes. So
that's terrific. I love the Thrive Forward, especially since this month, Fall Forward, is making sense to us. And so I just couldn't do this month without you. Mm-hmm. I'm super excited that you're here today. Well, our theme, of self-care. And I was thinking to myself, okay, what do you do for self-care? And whenever anybody asks me my claim to fame or my secret of success, I always say Jesus, Jack, and Juice Plus. Or now it's pretty much Jesus, Jack, and journals, because I really encourage people to write and record their thoughts in notebooks, journals. I have one here, and we actually brought several of our things. I want you to talk about yours too. Mm-hmm. But for me, my relationship with Jesus is a foundation to everything that I do, and I'm super proud of that. And it's changed my life from a teenager, and so it is one of my self-care prayer. I'm going to talk a lot about some of those things in the coming weeks. But I also have my my husband and our relationship of over 49 years, so I rely on him, and he relies on me. That's another one of my self-care. And then my journalings. I have one with me. It's one of my favorites because I actually had it engraved for myself. It says Stephanie, where my story meets his story, and his meaning my Jesus, and history, because there's a lot of things that we can record over life, and it's just good to sometimes get it out of your head onto paper, right? And you don't want, back in the day, the diaries that, you could lock them and didn't want anybody to ever see. But there's really a power in getting something out, right? Yes. And that's where you guys come in, and allowing somebody to just have a space where they can be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Say it out loud. A lot of times it feels different as you're saying it out loud. A lot of times people say that sounded different in my head, but as I'm saying it out loud, they kind of come up with their own solutions to problems potentially, or a different perspective as they're saying it out loud. So journaling can do that. Therapy can do that. There's a lot of different ways. But yeah, saying it out loud, getting it out, there's just something about it. It's different.
I like that, yes. I find that being therapeutic for me, and I guess I've been doing it for a long time, especially I've got a Facebook page that's devoted to my devotionals and scripture and some of the things that I've done. And it's just basically me and my journal in the morning with Jesus, and then I start just typing it in with my thumbs, actually, because usually I've just got my phone out on the porch with me, and I'll just start writing about it. So Stephanie Wolfe Ministries exists only on that Facebook page anymore, because I don't do anything other than that. But you brought some things with you today.
Yes.
So I know our listeners can't see them, but maybe you can tell them a little bit about them.
Yeah. So when I think of self-care, I think of something different than I feel like a lot of times mainstream talks about, of kind of this pampering idea, or that it's mainly for girls and females. I don't think of it that way at all. I think of it more of what is our rhythms, right? So just like you were talking about, and, for myself, right? This Jesus is part of a rhythm. Every morning before I get out of bed, it's prayer, and it's kind of refocusing on what's the day ahead, and what maybe God has in store. But it's also kind of the rhythms, such as just using time wisely. And so I have a clock here because time can, if we don't figure out what we want to do with our time, it kind of just figures it out on its own. And sometimes that's what we wanted to use the time for, and sometimes it's not. And so really figuring out what is our priority, and how do we want to use that time wisely. And then I also have a picture of one of our more recent family trips to the Virgin Islands. It's a beautiful picture, but really just the idea of taking breaks. So having a rhythm of breaks that doesn't have to be a lavish vacation. It could simply just be daily breaks, weekly breaks, but what does that look like? And then I always like to take yearly breaks of vacations as well.
That's good. Last week I taught the 1-1-1-1 that I teach. It's 1 minute every hour, and just getting up, standing, stretching, whatever, and then 1 hour a day, which is your lunch hour. Everybody should be able to have a lunch hour. And then 1 day a week, which is my Sabbath, which is Sunday, and then 1 week a year at least, being able to get away. I can't even imagine, sometimes I'm just winding down and it's time to get myself back ready to come back home. So that self-care is super important, and I love the things that we've already shared. But I did ask Alexa today, just so you know, it came straight from Alexa, what self-care is. And she said I thought it was great. The process of establishing behaviors to ensure holistic well-being of oneself, promote health, and actively manage illness when it occurs. And I thought that was pretty inclusive, of all kinds of parts of our life. And, people who come to you, they have a lot of needs, and it might be emotional, it might be mental, it might be physical, it might be spiritual. And I have a lot of the same kind of things, but tell us a little bit about your practice and how you address those things. What happens when someone comes into Thrive Forward Therapy, let's say the first time?
Yeah, so most of us are licensed family therapists, and so we are really going to start by looking at an assessment of what's going on and what are the things that they're really wanting to focus on. So that could be a variety of different things, but we really start to look at that and then try to kind of give an idea of like, how did this come to be, and starting to kind of connect some of those dots. We work a lot with teenagers, kids, families, and so those presentings can be self-care, right? That self-care just didn't quite happen, or there was a stressor that happened. It could also be anxiety, depression, but we start to put together a plan and then start to work towards what those goals are. And that's a very collaborative process. So we want that to be something that fits for the family or the individual, something that's really going to help them to achieve and kind of get to where that they're wanting to be.
That's nice, because they have that support from family that's bringing them, of course. And today we're really leaning into the children and teens in our life. But another definition I found is self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. So it doesn't have to be you're in trouble. It's taking action to preserve something that you enjoy or love, like taking a vacation or getting away from the clock, ticking away at you all the time. And it also said the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. And we're going to talk about stress, but I tell my clients that it's the opposite of self-care is I don't care.
Basically, yeah.
It's just where they're like, oh, well, whatever, it is what it is. That's one of my least favorite sayings, because it doesn't have to be what it is. We can make adjustments, and especially when this says, taking action. And both of those said establishing behaviors and taking action and preserving and improving. So we all have room for improvement.
Yeah, all of us. And I love that it says protecting and preserving, because it really is that, so if you don't take care of your own self-care, right, then it's not really going to happen. So I love this idea of like being proactive versus reactive.
Just like our audience, they're proactive because they're listening to Work Well with Stephanie Wolfe and working.
Exactly.
They might be working with one of our amazing health coaches at Whole Food Health Coach, or one of the amazing therapists at Thrive Forward Therapy. Yes. We're doing a lot more together these days, and I really appreciate our foundation. I guess we both share a lot of the same things, and we've got some desires to partner, but not be more than just referral partners. And I love that. So tell our audience a little bit more about what we're doing.
Yeah, so we're partnering together in terms of thinking about the mind and the body and how we can work together and helping someone kind of get to where they want to be. So, with therapy, we can really kind of work on the psychological pieces of things in the mind and, kind of the cognitive pieces. And then when we hit a spot where it really seems like they could benefit from kind of working on their nutrition, their body, and how that intersects with their mind, that's when we send people over your way. And I think it's just a beautiful partnership that we can work in both of those ways and really help people to get to where they're wanting to be.
Exactly. And I love that, because I feel like I can't handle all that you handle. And it's nice when you don't have to handle all of, their needs as well. Yeah. And there's so much that we do that may cross over, but I try to stay within my scope of practice. And I do have a lot of certifications in that area, but mine is all about forward movement. So helping them to set goals and establish the goals and the action steps that are going to get them, whether it's the numbers of A1C or cholesterol or weight, or just in general health and nutrition, putting food on the family table shouldn't be that difficult. And I think a lot of parents have enough stress over that, which we're going to talk about soon. But I'm a certified mental health first aider. And in mental health first aid, it's just basically assessing a situation that might be out of my scope of practice and being able to hand them off to Thrive Forward Therapy is powerful to me. So I think we're going to work well together. And I know parents and guardians and anyone who works in or interacts with teenagers or kids can find some more training and get some support and resources, and hopefully Thrive Forward will be one of them, as well as Whole Food Health Coach. So I'm grateful for that relationship that we've started.
Yeah, so am I.
So we're also we're going to talk about stress busting today and being a superpower, having our superpowers aligned here. And, our combined self-care superpowers. So we're directing most of our superpower specifically today in our time together towards coming to the aid of parents and guardians and those that care for children and teenagers. And stress is a normal part of life. We know that, and not just for kids, but for adults, and not just for adults, but for kids. And I think a lot of times we think of it as an adult issue, and we forget that our kids are really suffering somewhat as well. And I know you write for the Swanee magazine, Family Matters, and especially last month, your article on test anxiety and really overcoming that. So I was thinking about testing in school and some of those things too, where parents need the tools that can help them to navigate their child's feelings about these things instead of just, get over it, Johnny, or, suck it up, Sue, something like that.
Right.
But even college campuses are a melting pot of cultures and experiences. And I was just reading yesterday where both of those, culture and experiences, are among the differences that a lot of people are experiencing these days. And one statistic stood out about the higher education students in college and whatever, and it was 60% of college students meet the criteria of at least one mental health challenge. Yeah. And so that just kind of really 60% of them. And so test anxiety, all the expectations, trying to fit in, what else might I...
Yeah, I mean, I see overscheduling. This could be just culturally, right? Kind of this expectation to be doing a lot, trying to build up the resume, especially in those teen years of trying to get into schools, and or it could just be driven by themselves, just wanting to achieve and be better than the next. So I see a lot of that. Yeah, I think, peer pressure a little bit, but I'm seeing, just a little bit more of like transitions and stressors that have just come with our culture changing, our society changing. One of the statistics that I wanted to throw out there is that for social media, 3 hours per day, if a teenager is using about 3 hours per day of social media, it doubles the risk of mental health concerns. So if you think about how much social media is a part of our world, and the average, teenager is using about 3.5 hours, so, that I think that's a contributor, but, I think there's quite a few contributors there.
Yeah, of course. I know we mentioned expectations, whether it's school, home, or friends, or just their own self, putting pressures on themselves. And then, of course, just like I said, peer pressure. I guess that's a big word, but we all experience a little bit of peer pressure. And I think a lot of times learning to cope with stress and anxiety, learning how to deal with things that are disappointing or things that, just are unexpected maybe, or embarrassments, or any of those kind of things. I just wonder how that shows up sometimes in your practice as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think resiliency is a big piece of it. But these teenagers and kids, I mean, they've had to be very resilient. They've been through a lot, depending on their age and how that intersected with their development. So I've definitely seen resiliency grow, through kind of this COVID time and even after. But, it's also having to then apply that, not just know it, but apply it, and what that really looks like. And so coping strategies, for a child to have that, or for a teen to have those kind of in their back pocket, and to be able to pull that out, to feel like when life gets hard, there's something that I can go to. It doesn't mean that there's no hope. It means that this is a difficult time. It will come and it will go and it will pass. But just what do I do in the midst of it? And I hear so many kids and teens say, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. So just equipping is such a big part of that resiliency.
I love equipping, absolutely. And premeditated, preparation, all of those words are big words when it comes to this, and knowing what you're going to do, because things are going to happen. We've all experienced those things, and we're not always prepared. And even if you're prepared, sometimes that's not enough, because you're still going to be bumped around by it. But resiliency means you're going to bounce back. And that's the value of what we're talking about here. I know I used to tease that, of course, there's lots of stressful situations, but a school bus, I mentioned that earlier, alone can terrorize a child. I think the first kids, getting on the school bus, they're so excited, first grade, I get to ride the bus and all of that. And then it can quickly have its own issues and complications. And I speak from experience because I was an actual Gwinnett County school bus driver for 3 seasons. So I do know a little bit about that. But as a parent or guardian, when should you be concerned, let's say, about your teen's mental health or their well-being? And or is there a way to determine if your child is maybe going through something normal like adolescent behavior and that transition that you mentioned, and maybe experiencing something more serious that they should pay more attention to? Do you know how to address that?
Yeah, so the things that I always encourage parents to look for is some significant changes. So this could be change in their social, maybe they're isolating quite a bit more. That's, some of the earlier signs that we usually see. It can also be changes in sleep, eating, academic, changes. It can also be more of just kind of their mood changes. A lot of times parents always say to me, well, teenagers are, moods are, fluctuating and changing. And, yes, there is some of that just kind of naturally happens. But if it seems like there's more down days than energized days or positive days, that's something to really pay attention to. Or if it seems like their mind just kind of keeps going, there's kind of this racing thought of worries or concerns, or asking a lot of questions about what to expect or what they might be concerned of. And a lot of times for teenagers, that doesn't turn off at night. And so it gets in the way of sleep. And that's something to really pay attention to, because as this kind of shifts, it can shift more from stress to some of the other, things that we see, which is anxiety, depression, and if it keeps going and it doesn't really have, a way to kind of work through those things. This is Suicide Prevention Month. We can even get into that trapped feeling of, I don't know if this is going to change. And I feel like these stressors are so high, and I don't feel equipped with this. And so I don't see any hope. And so we definitely don't want it to get to that spot. So being really proactive when you start to see some of those stressors start to increase, and encouraging teens and kids, here's some ways I deal with it. You've got years of experience, as their parent or as their teacher, giving them some possibilities for that, or, just speaking those out loud. That really helps to be preventative with teenagers and kids, so they can use those when they need them.
I think that's a good word. I think also the physical side of things, because I know in my world, I'll talk about nutrition in a little bit, but headaches that show up, stomach aches, feeling sick, I don't want to go to school today, those kind of things. There are, some of those things that are going to show up anyway. Mom has to go pick the kids up, or dad, because there's a stomach ache issue, and it might be a test ache issue. But it also could be more, internal and more mental, just where their mind is just creating this anxiety, and then their body's responding, because stress does have a physical response, and it goes hand in hand. There's a couple different kinds of stress, which we don't have time to get into too much today, but I've talked about it on this podcast before, because acute stress is pretty important. If I needed to run from a lion, then I would be able to do that. I don't know if that's a good idea. They say don't run, but And then chronic stress, which is that day in, day out running from a lion. And that's where it can be a problem also for us adults, because it does feel like we're running from one appointment to the next, or this need or that expectation. And the issue with, if we could just run from the lion and then get to safety and then just relax, it's like, okay, I'm safe now. But it seems like this chronic stress that's creating so much more anxiety and sleeplessness and illness mostly comes from not ever finding that safe, taking a breath.
Yeah, kind of that calm down, that it's going to be okay, I'm safe, like you said, spot. And a lot of times people, ask me, well, what exactly is stress? And so really stress can come in whenever the demands of whatever we have going on or that are needed from us exceed our resources. So if you think about this in a kid aspect or a teen aspect, this could be maybe they don't have enough time, or maybe they don't have, enough resources or support to deal with whatever's in front of them. And that's really where I see kids and teens. But, same thing for adults, right?
Yeah.
When the demands exceed our resources, that's where stress comes in.
It feels like most of us live in that state unless we're spending time in self-care, unless we really own it and take ownership and make those decisions that will help us to step away and help us to de-escalate. And a lot, instead of just pressing in and trying to accomplish and get this one more thing done. I mean, that's me. I'm like, oh, just this one more thing. I'm almost I'll send email, or, I can, return this one call and then I'll turn off. And that's not a healthy way to exist, let alone work. I mean, I don't think I can bring my best self all the time if I'm on the edge of things. The edge of calling you up and saying, help, Jennifer.
Yeah, same with me, right? So, and, just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean that I don't experience these same things and use my own strategies to, calm myself down when I've had a hard day. I model this for my kids, as much as I possibly can. We were just actually talking about it last night before they went to bed. And I feel like that's a really great time to talk about things. It's a quiet moment. They're more receptive. I find my kids ask so many more questions during that time, or tell me that thing that made them sad for the day during that time. But that's where I try to slide some of those strategies in.
That's a really great tip for our parents out there, to utilize that little bit of time before they close their eyes and go to sleep, to maybe even just share with them how grateful you are for them, or what you see in their life as a strength, or allow them the space to say what's going on. And certainly having prayer time with them is always a good option too. I encourage that all the time. So I'm just going to share a few tips, and I'm going to stop after each one and let you weigh in, okay?
Okay.
So that we can, I always tell my listeners to get out your pen and paper, because now's the time, if you haven't already done that, to be taking notes. But the first one, and we sort of alluded to it, but that's encourage physical self-care. So talk to your teens about their health habits and those things like their diet, the nutrition, exercise piece of that, because I do think that there's a lot of bad information out there, and a lot of young people are falling prey to it. And the marketing and some of those things that we've seen, monster drinks and energy drinks instead of actual food and actual fitness routine, and some of those things that are more valuable to them. But there are several studies, including one that was published by the American Journal of Public Health, that show the positive effects of a healthy diet and regular exercise that have on well-being and mental health. And I always say the worst foods are the ones that come out at schools and churches and hospitals, sadly. Those should be the safest places, for good food. And I also heard a parent say, that their child only has 20 minutes for lunch. And that's just a lot to put into lunch and socializing, because it is a part of a child's experience, and that's just too little time. Maybe other place, maybe they could get in trouble if they had more time. So maybe that's it. But I think they have to feed a lot of kids, so that's probably why. So focusing on proper nutrition at home is important, to do what you can do, not what you can't do, and control what you can can control, and pack healthy foods for your kids. If you're into packing their lunches, help them to learn how to pack their own lunch. I think kids can do that for themselves, and it's not the time. I always say to my clients, it's not the time to pack them something new to try.
Very true.
You have to. Dr. Sears always says it takes about 20 tries to get your kid to actually try something new. So snacks and after school snacks, even, healthy nuts and boiled egg or meat cheese type sticks or fruits and veggies. Kids love to dip their veggies, and so get him a healthy dip. And I really recommend smoothies, to put some really good nutrient-dense vegetables and fruits into a smoothie. And I encourage coconut water. It's such a good, healthy way to have an energy drink. It is one of the best energy drinks. So I've heard parents, actual experts say one time, parents decide the what, when, and where. Kids decide the if and how much. I thought that was interesting. All right, so your turn. I'm bouncing the ball to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is more your area, but I'll weigh in just a little bit here. What I see with nutrition and mind, it's so connected. Like you were saying, it really does impact how they feel mood-wise. And so there's certain foods that can be really helpful to kind of just stabilize mood, to give energy. So if a child comes in and maybe they're not eating very frequently, that really can impact their focus. And so, that can play out in many ways throughout their school day. Just at home at night when they're trying to do homework, they're trying to do activities. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what you were saying.
I think a lot of times the things that are quick and easy are the things that end up, in the child's belly in the morning before they go to school. And then I always feel bad for the teacher because it's usually something sugary and, from Pop-Tarts or, cereals and all of that sugar that they get, which helps stimulate more cravings and what we call excitotoxins in the brain. It overstimulates the brain and then drops it like a hot potato. So I do teach a lot about healthy fats and also the neurotransmitters and how to fuel your proper nutrition, so you're getting proper neurotransmitter function. So, all right, the next one is fostering mental and emotional care, and this is where journaling came in, also creating art or music, finding a new hobby such as cooking, and I think that those things vastly improve inner peace and joy. Plus, I think they build confidence and, like you said, resilience even. So consider giving your child a new journal or a cooking utensil or maybe a class to help push that type of encouragement. And I use the word push gently because, might not be if mom says I should do it or dad says I should do it. Maybe it's not that fun, but somehow to engage them emotionally in some activity or something that they love.
Yeah, and one thing that I've encouraged several parents to do over the years is to journal with a child, kind of back and forth in a lot of ways. And so especially for those teenage years where there's kind of some shutdown at times of I'm not ready to talk with parents about this, or I don't want to talk with parents about this at all. Sometimes that can be a really great invitation. You get a notebook, you fill out, parts of it, or there's even journals that will help you to kind of go back and forth, write some things down, very positive to the teenager or the child, leave it somewhere where they're going to see it on top of their pillow or desk or wherever that might be. And then the ideas they write back. And so sometimes things that kids or teens are not comfortable with talking face to face, maybe they'll do it through writing. Sometimes they'll do it through text, but maybe encourage writing as just a quiet moment that they can really process through some of that.
I like that. Jack and I have a journal. We call it the bathroom journal. And so we write back and forth to each other. We shared about that at on Marvelous Marriage Marathon Month. We gave a lot of tips, and that's one thing we've been doing for 24 years.
That's wonderful.
So I love that, to do that with your child. Jennifer, thank you. All right, the next is discuss social media usage. Now, you brought that up, and so I know, we both had that mindset, but 90% of teens have an iPhone. 90%. I mean, I used to couldn't wait to get home to call my friends that I just spent the day with, and they have the phone all day long.
Right.
But social media apps like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat play an influential role in our kids' lives, young people's lives. And Pew Research Foundation study said that 86% of teens who use TikTok and Snapchat say that they are on the platform daily, with a quarter of them saying they are on the site or app constantly. A quarter of them. And so I say, talk to your teen about their social media usage and how it impacts their mental health. And then listen to them. Ask them questions. Don't just try to ban them from it, is what I've said. Just, it's a discussion that should be taking place. Now, if they're younger, I mean, we make all the decisions for them up to a certain point, but still, we can't really govern them 24 hours a day because you're not with them. So the idea that I always share is, helping the kids to understand it's a privilege, not a right, and that with any privilege comes responsibility, and there are consequences for improper use or extended use or some overuse, I suppose. But really listening to them, I think, is key, and helping them to understand. Because I also learned that because of this with social media, kids have gotten into gambling, and I was just like, seriously? I'm, how old am I? 65? And I've never gambled a day in my life. And these little people have access to, and I guess it says, are you 18, or whatever, or 21, or however old, you have to be. But the thought here is discussion with your child. And that's where journaling can come in too, because they can let you know how they're feeling about what they read or what they heard, or, and of course you can probably even see it on their face or in their mood, what they heard and what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking a lot more about tech with families, and this has actually become pretty divisive between families because parents want to bring some of these things in that you're talking about, and teenagers don't want to have any part of it. And so, yes, communication, I think, is a big key to that, but it's also looking at the way that that's communicated. We actually covered social media and tech on our socials on Facebook and Instagram all last month. And so there's a lot of different kind of tips and things there. But one of the things that we put on there is a social media, a tech. It includes social media, but a plan, right, for the entire family. And the earlier that a family puts that into place, the easier it is to keep that going. And so sometimes that looks like having a place where all the devices go at a certain point at night, so that people can get rest and you don't have to wonder what's happening in bedrooms behind closed doors. There really is a lot of times, kids are going into adult worlds that maybe they're just not developmentally ready for. Like you were talking about with the gambling, that's like scratching the surface of all the different things they can find very quickly online. And so we won't go into all of those, but if you wouldn't, just throw your child out into the kind of unknown, world of, just in a dark alley, right? Like with all the things that can happen, it's the same thing online. So equipping them, understanding if they do see something, how do they talk about it? One of the books, that we recommended on our socials is up there for kids, that really helps them to figure out when they see something, what do they do? Like, what's a 3-step kind of process to that?
Very good.
Because it'll happen, right? When they're using tech, they're going to run into some of those things.
Honestly, I think the alley is less dangerous.
It might be. It might be.
Because there might be one person or a gang or something. But, when it comes to the internet, there's millions of ways.
It's so unknown. Yeah. So, put the parental controls up, but, still be, setting some of those things up. It's them knowing when you're not there, when the parental controls don't protect, from certain things. Now, what do they do?
Yeah. Well, and it starts at home. It starts with you, even the parental controls or those things that, that we can do, do what you can do for sure. But it really starts with that dialogue and making sure that our kids understand what it's doing to them, and that they experience, the negativity or the guilt or the, comparisons or any of those other things that are dragging them down, that may have something to do with it, and asking them the right questions or take them to Thrive Forward Therapy. And do be sure to look up them on socials, because I have followed you and your Facebook page. It's awesome. It's got great information for people, so of all ages, for all different reasons. Okay, the next one is teach healthy boundaries. And honestly, I think contrary to popular opinion, teenagers and kids really find it helpful to learn how to set limits, and they're going to experience it later. I wrote an article one time called Mean Mom, and you've heard Mean Moms as a movie and things like that. It's not like that, but be okay with being the mean mom. I think it's just a part of care and self-care, and doing what needs to be done for the family that we love. So whether it's helping with social media usage like we're talking about, or completing their homework assignments, or even in socializing, setting boundaries. So for example, if your teenager doesn't feel up to hanging out with their friends, but they feel compelled to, or they feel like they need to, helping them to come up with some boundary setting phrases, I think, is a good idea too. Thanks for the offer, but not today, or something like that. Instead, or, I always told my kids, you can blame me. Mom says I can't do that, or mom says I'm, whatever, too young for that, or not tall enough, or however, whatever. But teaching your teenager how to set healthy boundaries is something that they'll practice the rest of their lives if you do it correctly, and not just ban everything and, lock them in a cage somewhere, because, it can't be done. But what has to happen is my program On Purpose Parenting is all about parenting your child from the inside out, not from the outside in. And those bans and those things, it's like a rubber band eventually. So,
yeah. Yeah, teenagers, they really start that launching process when they're young. And so, a lot of times, someone will come into the office and we're sitting at like 16 and, we've got a lot of catch up to do. And so kind of what you're talking about is teaching how do they manage themselves? How do they set those boundaries? And I really think that starts probably around 12, 13, maybe even before, of like, days. How do they set some of that up? How do they, kind of decide who they want to spend time with, how they want to spend time with people, they don't have to please everyone around them, that they don't have to push themselves to the limit and not take care of themselves, that they can set those things up, and they can really bring some structure to their life that's going to take, they're going to stick with them as they launch out into the world, into adulthood and all of that.
Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, the last one is talk openly about mental health. The best way to destigmatize mental health is a discussion, and talking with your teenager or your child, even at their level. Obviously, you're not going to use big words for a 6-year-old, but there are some really great tools out there for even younger people to be able to express themselves, how they're feeling. And so talking with your teenager about their own challenges is important, and, point to statistics that you've read or heard, and see what their thoughts are on that topic, and understand, that they need to know this is common. They're not abnormal, that there's not something wrong with them. You're not talking to them because there's something wrong with them. But also, knowing when to ask for help, and, help is a good thing. Help is like, anything else. We can't do everything, and asking for help, I think, is sometimes a superpower, because it doesn't come naturally to any of us. It's something supernatural almost that we have to reach out. And that's why I always say, prayer is important to me, because it's like there's so many things I can't handle, but he can handle it all, and he carries me. So
yes. So I think that's really important, that you bring that up, and I think the more the parents are able to kind of move in that direction, I think it really just brings a lot of help to teenagers and to kids.
Well, I teach something called the ABCs. I actually added a D, ABCD. It's a tool for kids just to kind of become aware of their own emotions. And I know you guys have a lovely little children's area that's specific for helping them to express themselves, to talk about things. And but this is just a quickie for anybody listening. A is awareness, and it's really about identifying your emotions, identifying what's going on, and at every level or every age group, there's a way to do that. And then B is breathing. Just sometimes like that. Like I said, feeling safe. It's almost physiological if you take that inhale, exhale moment of your day, at least once a day, and then calming, or coping. Some people, I call it calming because it just helps bring me back to the moment, what really matters right now. And that just calms me down. And then the D is, do I need help? Do I need something other than what I'm able to do? I'm aware something's going on. I did my breath, I'm trying to calm myself and it's not working. So do I need help? And the E could be everyone needs, help sometimes, right?
Yeah. And I think modeling this, because you can talk about it and you can say it so many times, but kids are going to watch what you do, and teenagers even more so are going to watch what you do. And teenagers, I feel like after working with teenagers for so many years, they're really looking at parents, because it's a shift from that a parent is almost like a superhero, right? The parent can do anything, and but then the parent becomes real, and so they're watching a parent during that time.
Wow, that's really...
for how do they actually manage this? This is what they say, but then what do they actually do? And so they're watching, how do you manage your own emotions? And so we're going to learn as much as teenagers learn from us, we're going to learn from them. Teenagers are extraordinary. There's so much that's happening.
I love my teens
in the brain during that time. So yeah, I think modeling is a big piece of it, but then also giving information. Here's different ways that you could. Maybe I would want to try this. Maybe we try it together. What would this look like?
I like the trying it together, and I always like the choices, because I think teens want to make a choice. That autonomy is really kicking in, and so if you say you will do this one thing, is not always the best plan. The best plan might be which of these things feels like it's something that you could do or something you could add, and that helps them a lot. And I know for anyone who's really struggling, with either suicidal tendencies or just really don't know where to go. I know there's the 988 number now, but for the mental health hotline. But did you know that 6 weeks after they launched it, there was already over 10,000 calls Georgians had made seeking help? And
doesn't surprise me, but yeah,
I'm sure it doesn't, because I know your schedule is probably pretty full. And but I was thinking about how how it escalates to a place like that, and I think a lot of times kids, adults, teenagers, any age group, anyone just needs someone to listen sometimes, and that's easy because they don't know that person on the other end of the line. And so maybe that's an option, but that should tell us that they need to talk, and people need to talk. And so Thrive Forward Therapy is there for those who want to improve and persevere and take care of themselves, that self-care side of things. Routines are great. We talk about, routines with children, and helps them to self-regulate, and some of them, to help them manage their expectations, and getting enough sleep. We talked about nutrition as well. Sleep. Kids are actually supposed to get 10 hours of sleep a night. So avoiding those electronic devices before bed, putting it away at an early time. They say 3 hours before bed, minimum 2 hours before bed. So no blue lights. But I encourage families also to do, start practicing a mental check-in with your kids every day. And you mentioned it for nighttime is a great time, because they're quieter, they're winding down, they're a little more calm, there's more peace at that time, hopefully. And I think the whole family benefits from a check-in, maybe the dinner table, but it might be at night. And then my last point is just practice what you preach. And you already mentioned it. Best example is the one you set as a parent or guardian. Your own mood management and self-care superpowers is what's most important, because kids learn, they should learn that mood management and coping skills and resilience and all the things we've been talking about from you as a parent, from you as a guardian. And those are some amazing, we've given a lot of information in this short time that we've shared together. So I'm sure that some of our listeners are going to want to listen to this all again, but I want to make sure that if there's anything that you haven't said that you just want to make sure that people know, I'd love to give you that opportunity. So go ahead.
Yeah, so, we're all about kind of equipping and resourcing. And so we have a part of our website that you can go, and we're putting self-care, different options for that. All different ages can benefit. So if you guys want to go to Thrive Forward Therapy /self-care, that's where you can find those resources. We're actually going to be adding some more coming up in the next, week or so. So if you check it today, check back. But there's a lot of resources there. We have a calm down card, and that is for getting grounded. So if someone is feeling really anxious or this could be just high stress for the day. It's really about engaging all 5 senses, and it's just a quick little card that you can use for that, that you can find there. There's also kind of just a calming strategy for a routine at night. And then there's a questionnaire you can take that just gives you some more ideas of how to do that, book recommendations. So there's a lot of information in there.
Great. All right. Well, both of us are have been nominated for Best of Gwinnett in different categories. So I encourage our listeners in Gwinnett County or all around the area to vote for Thrive Forward Therapy and Whole Food Health Coach as well. We are in your corner, and we're working together in partnership. So I am excited to just have spent this time with you, Jennifer, and I feel like it's benefited all of our listeners. Super powers.
Yeah,
And
thank you again for having me.
You're welcome. Awesome. All right. Well, you've been listening to Work Well with Stephanie Wolfe, brought to you by the Whole Food Health Coach LLC. And I've been with Jennifer Wilmoth today, Thrive Forward Therapy. And remember, Whole Food Health Coach is here in your corner. We make your goals our goals, and you're never alone on your wellness journey. For information about our corporate wellness programs, virtual classes, or individual coaching programs, go to wholefoodhealthcoach.com. Our coaching is available virtually anywhere in the country. I'm Stephanie Wolfe, wishing you well personally and professionally. See you next week, live or on your favorite podcast channel. Until then, watch football and choose life.